Tell us, anything we know more in terms of details, whether or not this deal or a deal like this is actually going to happen.
Well, of course, we know that both Amazon and Nike are taking a look at Peloton. They are weighing potential bids for the company. I think for Nike, it would make a lot of sense given that they already have a ton of athletic apparel. Obviously, that's their business. So Peloton could fit in pretty nicely, giving them a new hardware business. Obviously, they had the Fuel Band wearables several years ago. That was discontinued around 2013, 2014. So this would put them back sort of in the physical health tech space. It would give them the workout classes and would give them a brand new way to reach customers and, integrate a pretty successful brand, even though they've been taking a little hit recently in there. Amazon makes sense from the sheer amount of money the company makes. I think Amazon would integrate it heavily into Prime, make the Peloton subscription part of the Prime subscription. So you'd need to buy all of that, and that could be a new revenue source for Amazon. I strongly believe that Apple won't be buying Peloton if a deal gets done in the near term. I don't believe Apple has made a bid, and I don't believe at this point they are interested in Peloton. So I think you could rule that out, at least for the time being. But obviously, things could change, things get fluid into the future.
Right, and Apple certainly never made a deal this big and shies away from big acquisitions at all. Simeon, wide range of names here. Apple, Amazon, Lulu, Nike, Disney. Who do you think would make the best owner for Peloton, and what makes sense?
Nick, great. Have this wide list. They're like the largest mega caps of the world. It's like take your pick. So I think Mark brings up some really interesting points, and I think the Fuel Band is a really important point that people don't really talk about, but I'm going to come at it from the reverse angle. We cover the athletic companies. I cover Nike, Under Armour, Lulu. You watched all of these brands that sell shirts and shoes enter in one way or another equipment and hardware and then pull it back. And I think what they're increasingly showing is what they want to do is they want to sync with everyone. They want to be neutral, and they want to be able to play in that world more from the software angle than from the hardware. So I would be surprised from the Nike perspective. I think like the biggest question is figuring out what value Peloton brings. And I think that what's interesting are the notion of Apple buying Peloton was floated when Peloton had its star incredibly rising, and Apple chose not to do it. I mean, is there really this distinction if we're thinking about this is going to be needle moving? How important is that price? And I think that what we have to determine is, do an Apple or an Amazon or do any of these companies want a fixer-upper restructuring story? Or do they want a growth story? Generally speaking, I think we probably agree the latter. If we think about Whole Foods, if we think about Beats, if we think about the shiny, really exciting companies that these companies buy. And by the way, I love Peloton as a product. I'm a user. But I think what we're seeing is faltering demand. We're seeing a rebase in terms of what this company represents. And that's why I think right now, Peloton's best bet is probably what they've been doing. It's starting to re-elevate. It's starting to raise price rather than cut it, and start to kind of core focus on who that strong, loyal, really impressive base actually is.
Right. There's no question there certainly is a big loyal user base out there, but how many new users is Peloton really going to add at this point? And a new owner isn't going to change the problem that maybe the connected fitness market is just a smaller market than some folks thought when we were in the middle of a pandemic. How will a new or a bigger company address some of these challenges? Simeon?
So you said it right, a big base. It's actually not that big, right? Relative to a startup, 2.77 million subscribers is fantastic. Relative to one of the mega caps we're talking about, and it doesn't move the needle. So I think it's exactly your point. Listen, Peloton dropped the price of their bike pretty heavily and did not see a surge in demand. What that means is there's not a high price elasticity. So I think that what we are seeing is COVID was a pull forward of demand, not an expansion of it. And at the end of the day, Peloton is a fantastic company for a very niche, insulated group of people. And that people has been phenomenal. It's been bigger, it's grown faster, et cetera. But that doesn't make it on the same plane as some of these mega caps in the world.
Mark, what's your sense of a size of a deal if this happens and the likelihood of something actually happening?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I don't think it's very likely. Obviously, Peloton reports earnings tomorrow, so it's possible that Peloton lawyers and lawyers for potential acquirers are going to work through the night and into the morning tomorrow in the afternoon to try to get something done. But at this point, it seems like things have only started moving in recent days very quickly, obviously with Peloton hiring advisors and some of the potential acquirers hiring advisors to investigate a potential deal. In terms of what it would be priced at, I mean, obviously Peloton would want to come in above its market cap, which is now below $10 billion. I agree, there's probably a better world for Peloton here if they started to sort of, raise their prices a little bit, try to expand their product portfolio, and try to stick this out independently, right? There is no absolute natural fit for Peloton, I think, of one of the mega caps or one of the larger companies. I think it does fit in terms of what we've talked about. I do think Nike is the best fit of the three, but, I'm not sure something gets done by tomorrow.
Simeon, if a deal doesn't happen, where does that leave Peloton?
Listen, we haven't underperformed on the stock like the products, but I think that right now this company is going through a reset. How many growth stories do we know once they become restructuring stories? It's not normally a fixed issue in the quarter. I think that right now there's a process. I think they're making healthy decisions. Healthy decisions aren't necessarily the bullish decisions for the short term. So I think that the reality is they need to look inward. They need to fix this cost structure, and then we can evaluate what the company is worth from here. But especially after today, I mean, we haven't underperformed on the stock.
All right, Mark, I do want to ask you about another story you're reporting on, and that is Apple's big event coming up on March 8th. You're reporting that they're working on a low-cost iPhone and iPad. What can you tell us?
So this will be an event currently planned for Tuesday, March 8th, one of their virtual launches. This will be probably the least significant and the smallest one of the year. This will be for a new iPhone SE and a new iPad Air. The big upgrade coming to both will be 5G. Those products are stuck on chips from 2020 and earlier, lower-end 4G processors. This will be a 5G upgrade, so look out for that.